couple of moments and we'll get started shortly. Thank you for your patience.
Wanda, have you let everybody in yet?
I was actually waiting for you. Yes, we are actually in, sir. We can get started now. I was actually calling you. I didn't realize that you were here already. So yes, the meeting is open if we want to go Facebook Live now. And I'm beginning to record.
Give me a moment, Wanda. Give me a moment.
Okay.
We're live on Facebook.
Thank you.
Wanda, get started. Since we went live on Facebook, go ahead and get started.
We're ready. Again, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our meeting this evening with the Director of DPW and the Director of DDOT. We're excited that you're here. I know many of you have questions. You've called out offers on many of these issues. So this is your opportunity to share your concerns and your questions with the directors. I'm going to turn it over now to Councilmember White to do his introduction. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, please put them in the chat so we can make certain that we can answer them. And secondly, if you have a question that you'd like to ask directly to either of the directors, please raise your hand and we will unmute you and you may ask your question at that time. Councilmember White? Sounds great. So why don't we go ahead and do introductions now. Director Lott, I'll turn it over to you first. And if you could do some introductions, that would be great.
Thanks, Ms. Lockridge, and good evening, everyone. Councilmember White, want to thank you and your full team, and to the Ward 8 community. Want to thank you all for hosting us this evening. My name is Everett Lott. I'm the Acting Director for the District's Department of Transportation, and I am here to talk a little bit about the services that we offer at DDOT. I am joined here this evening by several members of the team. Many of the folks that you, I'm sure, have worked with in the past, but I want to make sure I introduce them all. We have Joshua Clark, who is our Ward 8 Community Engagement Liaison. I think many of you definitely know Joshua, and also David Jones, who has been serving as the manager of the Community Engagement team and has just recently joined us over in the Office of the Director. In addition, we have Ronnie Dampier, who just recently joined our team from Demois, from the Deputy Mayor's Office of Operations Infrastructure. He's our interim chief of staff. Howard Ways, who is our chief of operations, and Earl Usler, who is our associate director for urban forestry. So I believe I've mentioned and called out everybody that's on the call from DDOT. And again, we really just want to thank everyone looking for a robust conversation, discussion to share with you all about the services that we provide, and happy to answer questions as we're going forward. So thank you, Ms. Lockridge.
Thank you, Director. We also have our interim director, Christine Davis, on the line from DPW. I don't know if her camera is working, but if you'd like to introduce yourself, Director, that would be great. I'm not sure if she can hear me. I know she's here, but not on camera. So while she's getting her camera, why don't I introduce our team? Again, my name is Wanda Lockridge. I serve as Chief of Staff for Councilmember Trayon White. And we have on our staff, Eric, if you want to introduce yourself and your lead.
Good afternoon. Eric Cleckley, Constituent Service for Councilmember Trayon White's office.
And you lead on what area?
I'm sorry, I lead on DDOT and DP. Oh, I'm sorry, DDOT and DCRA. I'm sorry.
Sounds great. And we also have James. James Wood, are you there? Would you like to introduce yourself and your lead?
Hey, how you all doing? I'm James Wood. I work for Councilmember Trayon White, Constituent Specialist. My leads is DPW and DMV.
Thank you so much. And I think we have one additional person. Jules Jesse, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jules Jesse. I work as the PR and communications consultant for Councilmember White, and I'm the reason we are streaming Facebook Live right now.
And we thank you for that. Director Davis, are you able now to hear us? Anyone from DDOT would like to end? Okay, yes, ma'am. We can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
So they said they're going to log out and try again.
Okay, sounds great. Okay. In the meantime, Councilmember White, are you here? Are you available, sir?
No, not at the moment. I'm here, Wanda, but I'm caught up in something right now. But
No
go ahead.
problem. We go ahead and proceed. Just jump in whenever you're ready. So if there are anyone now, we can begin to take questions from any of the members from the community. Are there any ANCs? I'd like to recognize any ANC commissioners that's on the line. Are there ANC commissioners? If so, please put that in the chat for us so we know you're here and we can recognize you. If not, if you like to raise your hands for, there are 2 hands raised now. Let's see if we can bring them in. So the first one is for David White. You are able to speak. Your mic is unmute.
Yes, I just wanted to ask a question. The people in my neighborhood have been hearing drilling in the vicinity closest to Joint Base Anacostia, and we didn't know where it was coming from, and it's going on in the wee hours of the morning, generally on or near the weekend. So this past Sunday, we drove past there, and we saw a guy on this huge piece of construction equipment just drilling big rocks into small ones. And I mean, that's infuriating to have to listen to at night. And it's generally, you can hear it from that point almost as far as King Avenue and W Street. Do you know if anyone, because I mean, we've called the police before asking them, could they find out who that is doing this drilling at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning? But we didn't find out where it was until we caught the guy 8 o'clock Sunday morning on this huge piece of.
Clear sound. So is there anyone here from, I'm sorry, DPW? Mr. Let us come back to that question when DPW is back on the phone. My apologies for that. And let me introduce some of the ANC commissioners. Let's see, I'll start from the beginning. I don't want to miss anyone. Commissioner Stephen Talent, he's from SMD 8A07. We have Commissioner McBroom from 8E01. We have Commissioner Hudson from Single Member District 8E05. And we also have Commissioner Jennifer, 8D07. We thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you have any questions, please let us know. Let's see, DPW is back on the line. I'm not sure if you were able to hear us, but there was a question about drilling. Mr. White, are you able to repeat your question?
Yes, I can. My question was in reference to some drilling that the people in the Chicago Shannon neighborhood have been hearing over the last, I would say over the last month, in the wee hours of the morning. And we didn't know where it was coming from until this past Sunday at 8 o'clock, we found a gentleman in a huge piece of earth movement equipment, taking a jackhammer portion of it, drilling large rocks into small ones, just breaking them up. You know, and I mean, this has been happening over the last couple of months, but you always hear that drilling sound at, say, like between 1 and 3:30 in the morning on Fridays, Saturdays, and sometimes like I said, we caught them this past Sunday at 8 o'clock doing the same thing. Is there any reason why that has to be done? I know there's a lot of construction going on down there, especially at that overpass northbound 295, but it's ridiculous to hear that type of drilling at that hour from that particular location. I know there's no more people living in the Berry Farms area, so they wouldn't be immediately impacted. But you can still hear that drilling sound almost as far away as King Avenue and W Street.
Okay, Director Davis is on the line. She says she can hear us. Not sure if we can hear you. You want to try your sound now, Director? Ms. Duffy, can we hear you? Are you able to speak? And if so, are you able to address that?
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
I had to log out and log back in again. Maybe Director Davis, I'm not sure if she has logged out, but you couldn't hear me until I did that. Yeah, thank you for the question. We don't really, DPW does not really handle permits for drilling or any type of construction or road work, which is what this seems like it is from the question. DDOT may, in fact, be able to speak more specifically to that. The director is saying that she's logged in and out several times and still no video.
What about sound? Still no video or sound. Okay, Director, we apologize, but yes, Director.
Let me go. I'll address that question to the extent that I can. I know in terms of the DDOT project, we've been working along that whole corridor, Frederick Douglass, all the way almost out going past 295. And I know we have no particular drilling or excavation happening at this point in time. So what it does make me think is that it may be some type of emergency excavation that's happening with some of the utilities. And so one of the things that we can do is just to look and coordinate and talk with the utility companies to see if they actually have some projects going on. But in terms of our project on the roadway and as it relates to the bridge and the work we're doing along at Malcolm X, we don't have any drilling that's happening there at this point in time. We did have some earlier in the year and definitely last year. But when we did that, we made sure that we did coordinate that and provide notices out to the community, making them aware of when we'd be out there and the impact they would be expecting to hear. So right now, I know it's not a DDOT related issue, but we're happy to go and look and work with the utilities to see if it may be one of the utility companies that had to do some type of emergency type of excavation.
Thank you, Director. Our next question comes from Mary Balla. You are now unmuted. You may ask your question.
Great, thank you. Director Lott, I put the context of my question in the chat just so that you know what's going on, but I am a resident of Dexter Terrace Southeast, and we submitted an application for residential parking in June of 2020, and we have been following up since that time. Of course, we know that there's been the pandemic and things like that. There has been a lot of back and forth with the folks at DDOT on your team, with a lot of follow-up on our end, and we were informed in May of this year, so just a couple weeks ago or last week, that that our application had been denied in error, and our application did have the required percentage of permit or of signatures from the households, as well as was signed by our ANC at the time, Trayon Jones, and right now we do not have any type of resolution. We have not received any update, and this process we have been through as residents of Dexter Terrace twice before, and the process has been abandoned by DDOT. So the residents are certainly feeling very frustrated. Are you able to speak to the RPP timeline as well as what can be done about this current situation? Because I'm fairly certain this is not how the application for a residential parking permit is supposed to work.
Ms. Balla, I'm going to ask my Chief of Operations, Howard Ways, if he can address that. That particular unit reports to him. Howard, are you on?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So obviously it shouldn't take nearly a year to get resolution on an RPP application. Not knowing the specifics about your application, I really can't speak with any with any certainty as to what the challenge or problems were with the application, but I will definitely write this down. It would be helpful to have the specific address. I see Dexter Terrace. I need to be better to know exactly what address and what block. I can do some investigations. I can probably get an answer, maybe even as early as tomorrow, as to the status of your application.
Great. Mr. Ways, I can give you the specifics and as well as a copy of the permit and all of that. I know that Ms. Lockridge has it, and so I can get that to you really right after this meeting.
Okay. I will put my email address in the chat as well as my my cell phone number.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let me ask before we take another question. Did either of the directors have a presentation that they wanted to share this evening?
Ms. Lockridge, we did have a short presentation just to talk a little bit about our services. And yeah, at the appropriate time, we'd be happy to share that.
Sure. If you'd like to do that now, I'm happy to share the screen.
Okay. I think Joshua is going to share his the PowerPoint presentation from his computer.
Okay. I'm pulling it up now. Josh, I'm getting ready to give you access. You should be good now. Feel free to share at your leisure. Did you need us to give you a couple minutes? Okay, there we are.
All right, can I see my screen?
We can. Thank you. So again, good evening, everyone. My name is Everett Lott. I'm the acting director with the District's Department of Transportation. And wanted to just kind of give a brief overview about the different services that we provide from the District's Department of Transportation. So you can go to the next slide, actually, Joshua. And talk a little bit about the different services that we provide that range anywhere from urban forestry to streetlights. Of course, you know, our infrastructure and asset program, which involves our roadways, our sidewalks and alleys. We're right in the middle of all of our huge paving season right now. And we've been, did a record number of paving last year and looking to do something very comparable this year in terms of paving. But again, our services range from urban forestry to the infrastructure that we maintain, the roadways, the parking meters, bridges and tunnels. Just recently, we did put out a Move DC survey a few months ago, and that survey really allowed for us to receive and get inputs from the residents from all 8 wards about what they felt was important that would help inform us in terms of the services and the vision of DDOT as we proceed forward over the next 10 years. But under that Move DC program, we have our DC streetcar and circulator that we also are responsible for maintaining and operating. The Capital Bike Share, we just had returned our Bike to Work Day on Friday, where several of us with the mayor rode down to the Wilson Building, Freedom Plaza. We really encourage everyone to take advantage of the Capital Bike Share. It's a very cost-efficient way to travel and get across the district. We offer the electric bikes as well, which is becoming more and more popular these days. In addition, we have our bike network, where we are planning to implement more than 20 miles of protected bike lanes by the year 2022. And this includes both our bicycle lanes, but also including some of the trails. And so we're in the process of trying to make sure that we have connected trails throughout all 8 wards of the district. So it provides another avenue for people to be able to travel and get across and exercise. Scooters and bikes are also, or scooters and the dockless system is also one of the other services that we provide that you would find in our Move DC. And the quality of life, as I mentioned, the range of services, urban forestry. A lot of people don't know that urban forestry is a part of the District's Department of Transportation. And we're really pleased at the work and the progress that urban forestry has been doing over the many years, and continue to do a lot of great work now. And I know I think I saw in the chat a question too about urban forestry, so we'll be happy to answer and address that question a little bit later. But in addition, public spaces like one of the last areas I'll kind of highlight, and curbside management. We do provide all the different permits for anything in the public space, in the public right of way. And our permits office includes the Public Space Commission, and that is an opportunity for residents to be able to go, our stakeholders to be able to go and get their request approved through the PSC. But they do inspections. They also, going back to the question that was asked earlier, if there are some type of violations that are occurring or potential infractions, then we do have inspectors that will actually go on site. And if they are, if the contractor is in violation, we have the ability to actually stop work and issue a stop work order immediately. And so those are some of the services we provide. The last piece of it is the parking. We do residential parking and provide the residential parking permits, and as well as the visitor parking permits. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. Next slide. You know, one of the many ways and the best way to get information to us is to call and use the 311 system. This is the first step of many steps, or the first step and probably the most important step when requesting any type of DDOT service. And it's a great way for us to be able to track the service, and we use it as a tracking tool. And so going back to Ms. Balla, your request, just as an example, if that was put into the 311 system, just using it as an example, then that gives us the mechanism to be able to see when you actually submit that request, and how long it has taken us from the time that you entered that into the request to how long it took before we actually were able to provide that particular service. And so it's a great tool for us to be able to track. It's also a great tool for us to be able to hold our staff accountable. And so I really encourage everyone to use that 311 system as we continue to go forward in terms of services that you may be requesting from DDOT. Next slide. So I'm just talk a little bit about some of the resources, the programs, and the protocols that we provide. As I had mentioned a little bit earlier, we are in the midst of our paving season right now. And paving generally starts anywhere from March or April and goes all the way until the end of October. And sometimes we might be able to stretch it into November. It's all contingent upon the weather. But this particular tool here, this PaveDC website, is an interactive map of DDOT's paving work that residents, that any of you can go on and use to track our progress as we enhance the safety of our roadways and our infrastructure and improve not only the roadways, but our sidewalks, as well as pothole repairs. And so we really encourage y'all to go onto the site. You can track our progress. I believe this slide is a little outdated because we did have an earlier version that we saw a little bit earlier today in the meeting. And I think we've actually done closer to about 50 miles of completed roadway surfacing as of now. So, but we are paving, I believe, more than 131 miles, or plan to pave more than 131 miles across all 8 wards of the district. And so we're really proud of the work that the paving team does and has done. And if you do see us out in your particular neighborhood or on your street, we really are trying to get in and out within 3 to 4 days. And so if you all can work with us, that'll help to ensure that we're able to get in, get out, and move on to the next quadrant of the city. Next slide. One of the programs that I really want to highlight and talk about is our visitor parking permit program. This is a new program in that we have digitized this particular program to make the requesting and managing the whole visitor parking, the temporary parking, and even home health aid and contracted parking more convenient through a single online portal. You may be familiar with this program. In the past, you go to like MPD, to one of the precincts, and you can request a visitor parking pass at the precinct. But now we have automated this particular system. We're rolling it out as a pilot right now to make sure that we're able to work out all the kinks. And we hope to be able to roll it out to all of the city within the next month or two. But this will be a great asset and a great resource and that will be available in July. But there'll be a way that you can go online and request, again, your visitor parking permit. If you have visitors coming that will be staying for any length of time, if you have a home health aide that may be taking care of a loved one, if you have contractors that are doing work on your home or in your area, then this is a way that you can go online and be able to use this particular system to get a visitor parking pass. Next slide. So one of the things I want to talk about here is the Wheeler Road Southeast Safety Improvement Project. And what we're asking for is feedback from the residents on which safety improvements that they support for the Wheeler Road Safety Improvement Project. This survey also can be accessed at ddot.dc.gov/Wheeler Road. But this will give us information about, again, what's important to you. And so as we're combining and taking all that information in, it'll help to inform us in terms of what type of safety improvements that you'd like to see along this particular corridor. Next slide. I want to just talk real briefly about our response to the COVID-19. You know, for the past year and a half, a little over a year and a half, we've been in the pandemic mode, starting to get out of pandemic mode now, and I'm really glad about that. But some of the things that we're able to do while we were in pandemic mode, and some of the things that will be long-standing, is we have the ability to be able to reimagine our public space. And during the public health emergency, DDOT, we worked with the community to reimagine the space in the district. This included installing car-free lanes to improve our bus travel times, the reliability and the crowding at bus stops. And we also installed a bus car-free lane on Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue Southeast last summer. So we have many of these that we've done. We had one that we just recently installed around the same time last summer on M Street Southeast and over by the Nat Stadium. And so you'll see more of these, and you see the red paint. Again, the expectation is that this will allow for our buses to move more freely, which will improve the bus travel times and reliability, so it can get passengers and residents from point A to point B in a more timely manner. So we really are emphasizing our bus priority, and this is one tool in the toolbox to be able to do that. Next slide. During the public health emergency, one of the things that became really, really important, especially for the survival of many of our businesses and restaurants, was our Streeteries program. And the Streeteries was another way that we were able to reimagine the public space during the public health emergency. We worked with the businesses to expand their dining spaces by using the parking lanes in front of the restaurants. And this was assisted. We actually did one over in Bus Boys and Poets to open it. That was a street that was most recently opened over in Ward 8, and really happy about that. And I think it's really helping that business to thrive, especially during the pandemic area. So we've opened up, I think, roughly about 181 of these streeteries throughout all 8 wards. And it really has helped, again, many of these businesses and many of these restaurants to survive through the pandemic. So that's it, Mrs. Lockridge, on the presentation. Again, this is just a quick overview of the many services that we offer and provide in the District's Department of Transportation. I look forward to working with each and every one in the community, and definitely with the Councilmember's office. And again, now we're available for any additional questions that you or others may have.
Thank you so much, Director, for that presentation. Before we take questions, I want to make sure that Director Davis is now able to hear and speak to us. You're now a panelist. Are you able to speak now? I mean, we can hold questions. I just want to make sure you're on. Okay, maybe it's still challenging. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Tori Hawkins-Plummer in our office to take any questions from the chat. We can take a few here. We have a couple hands raised.
Thank you, Wanda. Good evening, everyone. We'll start with a question from Carol Ross. He's asking, back in November 2020, a large number of trees were planted in the 400 block of Xenia Street Southeast in Condon Terrace. These trees were planted without following DDOT public involvement plans or policies, including federal regulations relating to advance notice. So there was no community input from the impacted areas. So Interim Director Lott, please give us a date on when these trees will be moved or removed.
So I'm going to ask our Associate Director of Urban Forestry, Earl Usler, to join in on the conversation. And he can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, good evening, Ms. Lockridge and others from Councilmember White's office. Thank you for having me here tonight and posing these questions. So, Mr. Ross, I believe there was a meeting held today with some of our staff and included you and others from the community where this topic was raised. on site. And I believe that an outcome of that conversation was that some of the trees closest to the property where you live, we agreed to relocate those in the fall. And so I believe that there may be more conversation required for us to have about that. But my understanding from our staff who were on site today was that an amicable arrangement was made to address those specific trees closest to your property. I want to back up just briefly for a moment though, and talk a little bit about the notification process and what we're doing, and perhaps more than what we're doing, why we're doing it. So I'm the Associate Director for the Urban Forestry Division, and while we are within DDOT, the Establishment Act of DDOT actually assigns us the care and maintenance of all public trees, so trees on parks and schools and other public property. And as a result, we have a big window into all the types of development that are taking place on public lands. And as a city, we have a sustainable DC goal where we're trying to reach overall tree canopy of 40% in an effort to make this, to continue maintaining DC as a livable community for people, right? And this is a point that I truly want to emphasize on the call. I love trees, but the reason we exist as a division within the Department of Transportation is because trees are good for people, and we're doing this for the community that we serve. And so whenever we have an issue around notification, our goal is for everyone to know absolutely every decision we make. And in fact, so I'm actually familiar with the CFR that was mentioned in the question, and I can assure you that our activities are 100% consistent with not just that those federal regulations, but all district regulations as well. For these specific work orders, these trees were, the plan to install these trees was prominently displayed on our website and through opendata.dc.gov and other resources for more than 10 months. Then displayed the work order number and other information, which would have enabled people to engage. Now, I will say, due to the pandemic, our public engagement process has changed and shifted a little bit. In years prior, what we normally do when scheduling services of any sort is to physically leave a brochure with the abutting or adjacent property, so people know we're planning to prune your tree, we're planning to plant a tree, or we're planning to fill in the blank. Because of the public health emergency, we shifted that policy and moved away from physically approaching people's homes and leaving a physical object for reasons that I think make a lot of sense. And now that we've got nearly half of the city's population vaccinated and reopening and mask mandates are being relaxed, our entire team will be sort of returning to those practices to ensure that we're reaching the broadest possible audience. But I would encourage folks, well, let me say one last thing. The notice and notification and public engagement process associated with the trees installed in that DDOT right-of-way was identical to the public notification and community engagement process for the other 8,300 trees we installed across the city this past year. So we're desperate for public input and communication. We want to align our programmatic missions with the residents' desires. We work for you. And so I know we came to some arrangements on site today regarding some of the trees that were there. Happy to further pursue that conversation, discuss the trees in greater specificity, and answer any other questions people might have.
I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind putting maybe your contact information in the chat so they can reach out to you to set up additional times when they can discuss that.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that.
That would be great. Tori?
Yeah, Wanda, we have several questions. The next one, yeah, we'll take another one. It's also about the 600 block of Condon Terrace. Basically, a discharge pipe in the sidewalk was letting water out onto the street, resulting in a vehicle and pedestrian safety hazard from the street icing over. As of this date, the issue has not been corrected by running the pipe to a sewer or under the road to discharge to a field on the other side. Interim Director Lott, is there any way we can expect you to correct this issue?
Yeah, if we can get the specific address and location, then we can definitely send our team out there. And if it is in the public right of way, then it is something that we will look into addressing and work with the appropriate other agencies if necessary. But yeah, we need to get the specific location.
Okay, we'll get that to you. Hopefully, Mr. Darrell Ross can put the exact address, or we can provide him with your email address to send you all of the details. The next question, has parking enforcement, towing, and ticketing lifted their suspensions?
We will start in full effect June 1, as the mayor had mentioned, as we reopen DC, that parking enforcement and those restrictions will resume beginning June 1, which I believe is this Tuesday coming up, a week from today.
Thank you. And Wendy Glenn, who's the Director of Constituent Services for the Office of Councilmember White, asked about the 311 request. Her issue is that the requests are closed out when services have not been completed, and this is a constant battle. How can we fix this issue?
See, Joshua, are you on the call, please?
Yes, I'm here. So it all depends on what type of service request. Usually if a resident has filled out a 301 request, they put their email in there. And so if or when that request is closed out, there should be some detail in regards to why it was closed out and why the request couldn't be fulfilled. If that's not the case, that's why I'm here. And you can always contact me and I can get more information, but it all depends on the type of service request we're referring to. If you have specific ones, I would love to take them and look into them and see what happened to get a better explanation so we all understand what's going on at the location.
Joshua, can you give us an example of a ticket that has been closed out but haven't been fulfilled?
I can get it to you before we get off the phone, before we get off this chat.
And Joshua, to piggyback off of 311, we have numerous questions, but since we're on 311, one of our attendees says that they've called 311 numerous times about hanging cable, RCN and Xfinity wires. They're hanging down, obviously. They're told to call the cable company, but the cable company refers them to 311. Please direct them to the correct entity that can remove and enforce falling cable lines.
Right. So, and I'll give you an example. It's not cable lines, but I live in Ward 8 myself, and there was an incident where there was the sewage drain was broken into the street, and I put it in as a utility repair. And what happens is our public space inspectors go out and find out whose asset it is, and if it's not DDOT's, they make a note and they contact the appropriate utility company to come take care of the issue.
Okay. Another question that we have is former ANC Commissioner Stephen Slaughter and Angela Dyson submitted a request for a traffic study for the 800 and 900 blocks of Barnaby Street in June 2020. There's excessive speeding, which has led to a lot of accidents. They urgently need speed bumps. Can you advise of the status? And also with that, Joshua, how long does it typically take for a traffic study to be completed?
Sure. It typically takes 120 business days for a traffic safety study to be completed, depending on the situation. And I'm aware of Commissioner Slaughter, Ms. Simmons, and Ms. Dyson's request. So their request was closed out because they wanted speed humps on a road that was a bus route. And from our criteria, we don't install on bus routes, but I know they made it the point to let us know that we have done it before. I actually brought that up in my meetings today to figure out a solution on how to fix this issue. And I'm looking to have our team talk with Amada to see what we can do in regards to those types of issues. But I'm working on that, and I'm aware of that issue in regards to one of those speed humps and not being able to obtain them.
And if I may just add a little bit more to that. So as Joshua mentioned, I ask our Chief of Operations to also join on this part of the conversation. As Joshua mentioned, it takes our service level agreement is 120 business days. And after hearing that a few different times, I was like, that's excessively long and doesn't make a lot of sense, especially for some of the smaller requests. And so one of the things I've asked the team to look at, and Howard is leading that, and he can talk a bit more is really kind of revamping our overall traffic safety assessment process in the program. There may be some things that would require us to take more time, and it may require the full 120 days, but there are some other things, other services that may be being requested that should not take 120 days just for us to do the study and determine yay or nay on whatever the issue may be. So we are relooking and revisiting that whole TSA process. One of the other things that I would like to know before I turn over to Howard is that TSA process right now is a service that is contracted out and provided by one of the local universities here. And so part of the challenge that we've had this past year, of course, I think as most people would experience, is that things were delayed because of the pandemic. But in general, that process, even before the pandemic, was long and was cumbersome. And that's a process that I really want to overhaul. So Howard, if you can kind of talk just a little bit about some of the things that we're looking at doing to kind of overhaul that process, I'd appreciate that.
Can folks hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, good. Yeah, so as the director said, there are certain assessments that we do that do require 120 days or more to fulfill. Those are really complex transportation issues that often involve issues centering around schools or other institutions, as well as issues that affect the delivery of public transit. So in a situation that's outside of that, usually we can come to some resolution, sometimes as soon as 30 days. I've seen some recent TSAs that we've been able to complete in 30 days or less when the issue is very specific and germane to just one block of one street, and the issue really didn't have a neighborhood impact. So, we have to look at the scope of the request, the impact, if it rises to a neighborhood scale or not, and whether or not there are further complexities such as uses like schools or other institutions that affect traffic flow. So we're looking at all those different factors, and I can't recall the address of this particular case, but I will definitely work with the team to figure out if there's a way to either expedite the study that's ongoing and bring it to further resolution, or if there's some interim solutions that we can implement in the near term as we do a more full and robust traffic assessment, if that's what is still required.
Great, thank you so much. We're going to get back to some questions. I have 4 other hands up, so let's go to Miss Linda Williamson. You are now able to speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda Williamson. I'm a resident of Williamson Place. For several years now, I've been contacting DPW because what is happening is there are people that are loading on my street. I live in Williamson Place, which is dead end street. So what is going on? We have people loitering on the street, and there's trash that they're leaving. So I'm constantly calling DPW regarding, can you come clean the street? Well, the response is, I know it takes 27 days or whatever it is for them to come to clean the street. Well, now my concern is, not only has there been the trash that's consistently being left on the street, there has become now where it has been a shooting in that area that I had been complaining about, and this was 2 weeks ago. So the area that I'm concerned about is because, like I said, there's a loitering, and as I understand from Mr. Martin, there's not a loitering law in DC, so there's nothing we can do about the loitering. But now that it's becoming more than just a trash issue, it's becoming a safety concern because, as I just said, where that loitering is, there was just a shooting about 2 weeks ago. So is there anyone available to speak with that, or does anyone have an idea with whom I should speak regarding this?
Where's this located? I'm sorry, this is Councilman White.
Hi, Mr. White, at the 100 block of Wilmington Place. The 100 block of Wilmington. It's First Street and Wilmington.
Okay. Yep. I know what you're talking
about.
Okay.
You know who I am, don't you, Mr. White?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Yeah, we was on the last call. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's an MPD issue with the ones all on, but we can. Yeah, I'm in a bad area. I apologize.
Councilmember, we have Ms. Duffy from DPW that's going to address that question and concern. Ms. Duffy?
Yes, thank you so much, and appreciate you all having us on tonight. Very, very sorry that Interim Director Davis was not able to, access the meeting, and we will certainly, and she will certainly be happy to come back at another time, because I know she would like to address you all directly. But in the meantime, we will begin our mechanical street sweeping program and our general street sweeping program on June 1st. So those services were suspended during the pandemic. Now those services, as of June 1st, will be coming back online. And we very much understand the importance and sometimes the correlation that clean, safe neighborhoods have beyond just physical appearance in terms of what they do. So we are taking that very seriously, which is why DPW, the mayor has charged us, and DPW will be bringing those very important services back online. So if you're in a mechanical street sweeping program, which means you have signs up that tell you on what days of the week for how many hours, it's usually 2 hours, you cannot park, so we can access your curbside, so we can get that up. That will begin June 1st. Generally, we sweep every street in the district once a month. So even if you're not part of the mechanical street sweeping program, where we can access your curbside, once a month your street should be swept. However, if this is a specific situation like the one you described, our street and alley can come out and do a manual street sweeping. I will leave my email in the chat, and I ask you to please email me tomorrow. I did write that down, the 100 block of Williamson Street. But for other questions that may come up, please email me tomorrow for those specific incidents that are a little beyond regular servicing. Maybe a year has gone by and it has not received attention. We will very shortly, as Director Lott said, next Tuesday, begin those operations again.
Ms. Diffie, I have a follow-up question regarding that. How can our office obtain a list of those streets in Ward 8 that have that service? I actually happened to see a street sweeper just last week, and they were able to go into a few of the places where cars were not parked. But if they, in fact, are on the street, can you share with us why we wouldn't have signs on that street so people can know to move their cars? If we're going to have a street sweeper on that street, it would make sense for us to know where the cars can be moved so the entire street can be clean.
Well, there are two different programs. So the first program is the mechanical street sweeping program. That's the program that has the signs where people are directed to move their car. And the reason every street isn't in that program is because those streets that are part of that program, 80% of the residents for 3 contiguous blocks had to sign a petition agreeing that if they did not move their cars, their cars could be towed and they could be ticketed. So other streets that did not do that or choose not to do that get regular street sweeping, which means we will obviously go down the center of the street, because that we can do, and we can pick up a large amount of debris that way. And where there's room to access the curbside, we will take our sweepers and go and access the curbside. But those residents did not say that they would be willing to have their cars towed or receive a ticket if they did not, because once those signs are up, if your vehicle is found, or any vehicle is found on that side of the street during the restricted time, those cars are subject to be in violation.
Thank you so much for that. And then the list, if you can share that with us. Also, if you can share in the chat how individual may be interested on that, because some people may not know how to get into that program. So if you can put that information in the chat, that would be very helpful. The next caller is Commissioner Diop. I am unmuting your line and you may ask your question or concern. Commissioner Diop, can you hear me? You on mute.
Sorry, thank you. You can hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
My name is Monique Diop, and I'm an ANC commissioner in the southwest side of Ward 8, and I live at the 4600 block of MLK. For almost 2 years, probably going on 3, we have had oversized vehicles on our streets. I know that we share the streets with National Park Services, but it doesn't matter. These are DC streets. These vehicles do not have DC registration. They have out-of-state tags, and I have called continuously to get them removed, and they're still here. I put in 311 tickets. I have asked park enforcement to come up here, and I just cannot get this resolved. And these are like recreational vehicles. They're not even, they're like RVs. And they really need to just get off our streets because they're impeding traffic that comes into my apartment complex and also to the bus stop that's right beside us. So I put on 311 tickets. I cannot retrieve them right now, but I really, really need assistance in getting these off of our streets because it's going on 3 years.
Anyone to address that? Okay, thank you, Ms.
Yes, so those are some of the concerns that residents have been having. And we, as I said, parking enforcement will begin on June 1st. And certainly an email to me, I can certainly give that location as certainly one of the most immediate to be looked at. However, and I can send this to the council member's office tomorrow. Not every oversized vehicle is in violation. There are certain dimensions that a vehicle must have for it to be in violation of our parking laws. But certainly a parking enforcement officer can go to the location, find out if they can observe a violation and ticket where they find one.
Ms. Duffy, while you're on the phone with me right now, I've had several people that have come up to my area and they just didn't show up. They said they were going to come. They did not come. I live across the street, was waiting for them and they didn't show up. And you guys have closed my ticket and have not even given me a response of why you're closing them. And I know for sure that these vehicles are not supposed to be on our street because I've already assessed them myself. And I've looked at DC code. They're not supposed to be here. They're not even zoned up here. And I've been working with this issue for almost 3 years. And I just want to resolve. I have pictures that I can send you, and I will definitely contact you tomorrow. And I do want a response because this is not even the first time that I've been in a public meeting where DPW has said that they were going to do something and they haven't. So I really just want a confirmation that you guys are going to work with me for this because a lot of my residents are just really on me about this, and we really need to get this resolved.
Okay, well, I'm going to personally take that on. So please send me an email with the 311 request. That would be very helpful. But if I could, I just want to speak to the idea that DPW didn't come. I can understand, and maybe you're correct, and I will definitely look through those 311 requests to see if and a parking enforcement officer did inspect the scene or investigate the scene. However, one of the reasons oftentimes residents may think we don't come when they place a 311 call is because they believe that once the 311 call is placed, an officer would be coming there fairly soon. That generally is not the case. Our officers are trained to not necessarily come right away because it's not safe for them, for anyone to know at any given time where a parking officer is. There have been some issues in the past. Some of our officers have been assaulted and been in very dangerous situations. So they're trained to receive the call, to receive the location, but to not necessarily show up right away. And that's for their own safety.
Can I ask something real quick? This is Councilmember Trayon White. To me, it sounds like it's a lot of miscommunication and excuses. Like it's when people, and this is an ANC commissioner where I know it's active, who said she waited. Like we need some accuracy about what's what. Like, and we want to know why the tickets was closed out. Like, and you said early in the call, it was explained that tickets are closed out and there's an email sent why. And this is an ANC commission. I'm pretty sure she checked her emails. Yeah, we're saying they may have came out when you didn't know, but the vehicles are still there. I went past and saw the big trucks out there, saw the vehicles out there several times due to Commissioner Diop request. It's like we're getting a lot of excuses, like with the services and Ward 8. Another thing is about the street cleaning. I spoke to Mayor Bowser and the deputy mayor about our streets being clean, because there are residents who you may not get 80% of the residents, right, on any given block to agree to something, to agree to anything, let alone street cleaning. So does that mean the streets remain filthy, dirty? Because what I'm saying is disturbing with the amount of trash and filth on Bona Vista. I took a picture and sent it to the mayor. The filth and the trash is so piled up, you can't even park your car close to the sidewalk because the debris is so thick. You have to park your car off the curb. And I think since then someone went there, but it's cases like that disturbs me when we say we have this policy where you have to wait. I mean, where you have to have 80% of. I don't know many people that agree on 80% of anything. So that's a hard rule to try to follow when it comes to cleaning the community and getting the streets clean.
No, I certainly understand that, council member, and thank you. As far as the commissioner, the ANC commission is concerned, when I get those 311 requests, the one thing I will be able to do is tell you, and I can at that point be able to look up the location every single time, the date and the time that an officer was at that location and what the determination of that location was. So we will be able to have that information in our system, and I'm certainly going to give that information to the commissioner, and I'm happy to share it with your office as well.
Thank you. And I don't mean to cloud the conversation, but I know my office has helped residents put in tickets. They also got closed out. We haven't gotten any responses either. So we need to really look into that as the agency with all employees and staff. We're paying with tax dollars to ensure that we're getting services just like everyone else is getting services across the district. Because tickets getting closed out and it's not getting done. There's a gap there that's not being communicated.
No, I do hear what you're saying, and like I said, it'll be easy for me to tell you exactly what happened in those specific instances when I see the 311 request. And also in those areas, like you said, where the trash the debris is so high that it's limiting the amount of parking or possibly impeding walking safely on the sidewalk. We can have a manual crew come and clean that.
And who do we talk to get that, and what's the process for that?
You just have to request it. Really, 311. It's a street and alley request. It's not part of the mechanical street sweeping because that requires a street sweeper, and that is an entirely different crew that manages the mechanical street sweeping process than our street and alley folks. That's a manual crew.
So is there an email? Is there a person for? I can call and do it as the council member or everyday citizens. How do they get something like that to happen?
They can request from 311 a street and alley cleaning, and they would give the location of the street and what area they need to be cleaned, what needs to be cleaned. And they should specifically say sidewalk. If the debris is on the sidewalk, because it's not in the middle of the street, it's not a mechanical issue. This is more of a manual issue.
All right. I see someone say this. They got a response back that said they could take up to 27 days. Are you familiar with that policy?
No, sir, I'm not.
Looks like Council. Oh, thought you were closing it for a second, sir. Are you ready to get more questions? Or are you?
Yeah, I just want to respond to the last call about the Williamson First Street area. I have communicated some concerns from that with Director Holly Hopper because they have these building blocks, areas in which they be putting more attention and focus onto. They haven't moved yet into other areas outside the two they already have designated for Ward 8, but we are pushing them to do just that. with the building blocks agency and also the one's office. So I'll be following up with them as well. Because you're not. I mean, we've had numerous concerns and complaints about that. Even we had a Zoom call with the community, and the next day somebody got shot in the same location with MPD on the phone.
Okay, we're going to take a couple more hand raised. If there's someone on your team, DDOT and DPW, that's also checking the chat to see if there are any questions that could be answered. In the meantime, I'm going to take the next. I think this is Anithia Jefferson. I'm unmuting your line. You may speak now. Ms. Jefferson, do you have a question or concern? You're on mute if you're speaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is my first time enforcing a block party as well as doing a march. Ward 8, Anacostia area, we supposed to be partnering with the Temple of Praise in regards to the march movement. The date is still to be determined, but I do know the Anacostia area. We would be departing from 1840 Minnesota Avenue, ushering all the way up to the Willow Road area. Now, that's one question because I need to know the rules and regulation as far as that, so I can incorporate that in my business plan. And I also need further information as far as roadblocks, the regulations as far as roadblocks is concerned. Also to do fundraising for Madame I Am. We're starting a fundraiser. A fundraising event called Madame I Am in supporting all causes, all abuse, as well as police brutality. In representation of all the representing all institutions and stuff like that, or the Ward 8 youth community. So Madame I Am is trying to incorporate a movement on behalf of all the young kids who were getting killed in the Ward 8 community. I too have a son whose best friend had got killed last year on off of Martin Luther King. Just trying to go in a house after leaving a car to go in the house to get a charger for his cell phone. And they both were playing for football for the Titans over there in the Blue area. So a lot of the youth killings is affecting my children, who is also active in the community, very active in the community. And one of my son's, mentors is, our council member who's supporting we are supporting a lot of events on his behalf, and we've been doing this for eon years. So this movement is very personal to me because it's affecting my household, and I want to know what can we do so we can incorporate these things so that way we can support our community and keep our kids active as well.
Let me respond to that real quick. Thank you, Ms. Jefferson. Are you involved in our 40 days increased peace calendar at all? If you care for my staff?
Councilmember, let me find her again. She's on mute. Let me locate her. She can answer that question for you. Ms. Jefferson, you can able?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We can hear you. Can you hear me?
She's back on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay. Yes. I'm one of the chairs. And I was at the Anacostia Park because my friend April, who got the bullet grazed her when it shot Miss Ella over there on the 19th on Q Street area. I too know Miss Ella. Miss Ella is a good friend of mine. She is also the godmother of my friend's daughter. So the crime rate is like really high over there in that Minnesota area to the point where it's affecting our household, it's affecting our community, and it's also affecting people involvement because people are scared and they like no, I would be involved. No, I don't want to participate because the crime rate too high over there. We don't know who's beefing with who over there. So it's like hard to try to get people to get involved. And it's like we're trying, Trey. Like we're really trying. But then you have people who want to participate, but then they're like, it's too much because every time they participate, it's always something else is going on. So it's like it's too many chiefs, too many Indians, too much labor, but no work. It's confusing. But us, me, you, Keith, Betty, those who are always involved, always in always in action mode, who have our kids involved. You see me, I always have my toddlers be out there. So it's like, how can we get these people involved? But then we need funding. But the people, they want to participate, but due to the high crime rate, in Ward 8, it's like they iffy. So it's like, how can we raise the curve on that? How can we get them to change their view and get them, to be involved? So it's like confusing. So now I'm like, you know what? Go hard or go home. Me, I'm homeless because I had walked out of an abusive relationship, left my home and my comfortable bed. And so I'm also representing domestic violence. And then it's like, it's like I want to be involved. Am I too busy? But then I got my kids involved. But then it's affecting my home. So this movement is like very personal for me because I'm representing my community and I'm representing my kids. And I'm also representing myself.
I got you. Let's talk. I think there's a number of things we have that support this effort. And I just want to say for the record that what we are doing is not working, point blank period. We've tried a number of different things. We have been in communication with Linda Holly Hopper, and they're going to do grants coming out, I believe, the beginning of June, which you should tap into because we want to get proactive about the summer. What we've seen in the last couple of months going into the summer is an eye-opener for what's possible. And so we want to be proactive about that. But we can talk offline. I don't want to spend a bulk of this time talking about that, but thank you for chiming in.
Thank you, Councilmember. Barbara, I have no last name. I am unmuting you. You may speak now.
Hi, I'm Barbara Copeland, and I wrote in because somehow my video is not on. Yeah, I tried to get it on, but it didn't come on, and I was concerned about the safety issue in the area about the trees on Xenia Street. And so I think we already talked about that, and they said they're going to table it and have another meeting. So that's what I had to discuss today. That's it.
Thank you so much. The next question or concern comes from Ronald Drummond. I'm going to open up your mic now. You may ask your question.
Hello. Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity. I spoke with Commissioner Rhonda Everett-Heim. She's the commissioner for 8C06. And it's been over a year. She's just recently returned from the hospital. And she actually sent me, she called me, she sent me a message saying that she just got out of the hospital. She drove down Pomeroy, 2900 block, 2905 Pomeroy, and was sad to see that her request for removal of automobiles had not been taken care of. I actually submitted a couple pictures, and it's been over a year. There have been abandoned vehicles in the Pomeroy, 2900 block of Pomeroy, 2905 to be exact, of Pomeroy. There's two vehicles that have been there. I've actually submitted requests. My commissioner, actually submitted requests. As I said, it was sad to see that those vehicles still existed there. Also on the other side, over on Eaton Street, there is a vehicle that has been riddled with bullets. There's probably about 20 bullets on that vehicle. I recently noticed that there were two vehicles, a BMW and a minivan, that were on the street after the effect. Those vehicles have been removed, whereas the VW is still there. So it has out-of-state tags. These have temporary plates on them. In fact, the VW was actually one of the alerts that I received as far as nothing to do, no lookout person, because that was actually utilized as a shooting target. So I've submitted requests through 311. I involved my commissioner in the effort to have these vehicles removed. I've been in this ward for 3 years, moved from Southwest area, which is overgrown by the fact that there has been so much development that's gone over there. And it's sad to see that my cries go unanswered. So I'm wondering what I need to do to enlist your support in having these vehicles that obviously need to be removed because they don't need to be there. It makes my area look bad, and it makes my commissioner looks bad because of the effort that she has actually placed. Again, her name is Rhonda Edwins Hines. She's a commissioner for 8C06. I need these vehicles to be removed to make my area, in which I'm new to this part of Washington, D.C., to be taken care of immediately.
Thank you very much for your concern. Ms. Duffy, did you want to address that?
Yes, thank you. So I did write down, I think you said it was 2905 Plummer Street, abandoned vehicles. Certainly that will be part of our very aggressive approach for parking enforcement on June 1st. But I do want to say that oftentimes, and I know this is, not pleasant sometimes for residents to hear, but all vehicles that you or I may see as abandoned may not meet the legal requirement for us to take. But if there is an observable violation, we will ticket, and we will ticket the vehicle until we're able to remove it.
Thank you very much. Sylvia Lindsay, you are unmuted.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, great. I am calling in regards to an abandoned truck that has been parked on my street, and in particular parked in front of my home since October. It has Virginia tags, and I have placed requests, but every time the request is closed, and it simply states basically that the truck is not in violation. It also has in the ticket an option where I can send an email. So when I send an email asking questions as to why is this not in violation, it has dead tags, has Virginia tags, it hasn't been moved, trash is collecting underneath this vehicle, but I don't get a response from my emails at all when they're being sent. And I would like to at least two things. One, when people respond to the ticket that has been closed, that someone responds back when the email is sent. And the other thing is, can you give more details as to why this vehicle is not in violation when it clearly looks like it's in violation to me and others?
Actually lost. I think Ms. Duffy has answered that, but did you want to maybe get the address to that location, Ms. Duffy, so you can look into that further?
Sure, thank you.
Yes, the address is 140 Mississippi Avenue. It's Southeast DC. And if you'd like, I can put inside the chat box all of the tickets at least a few of the ticket numbers that I have that have been opened and closed, if you want those.
Ms. Duffy, you on mute. And Ms. Duffy, again, if you'd like to put your chat back in, your information back in the chat, so they may be able to contact you directly with the ticket numbers if you like.
I'm doing that right now.
Thank you so much. Okay, our next caller is Mr. Lafayette Barnes. Your mic is unmuted. Mr. Barnes, can you hear me? I'm not sure if you're speaking. If you are, we cannot hear you. Okay, let's maybe come back to Mr. Barnes. Oh, wait a second. I think you're now able to speak.
Okay, great. Can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. My comments are for, let me just cut this up. Everett, how are you, brother?
Hey, Lafayette, I'm doing great. How are you, brother?
Good to see you. Good to see you. I have two issues. First for Miss Duffy, this is Lafayette Barnes. I wanted to follow up on my neighbor who just reported an outstanding issue that we have at 140 Mississippi Avenue. I know that as a block, we have talked, our block association, so to speak, we've talked about that vehicle for several months now and tried several times to see if we can have that vehicle removed. So anything that you can do, Ms. Duffy, follow up with that, and I certainly will send you an email as well. By the way, you mentioned that you were going to put your email in the chat box. I used to work for district government, so I'm assuming that you're celeste.duffy@dc.gov.
That's correct, and I can see it in the chat. If others are having difficulty, let me know. I'll write it again, but I can see it in the chat.
Fantastic. So I sent you an email as well with the service request numbers that my neighbor Sylvia just talked about as relates to 140. And then there's another issue on the 100 block of Mississippi Avenue. Everett, I'll come back to you in a moment. I don't want you to feel left out. But we put in a service request, and the number is 20. I have it in the email to you, but just so you'll know, it's 20-000-89081. And in this service request, we had asked for overgrown vegetation right at the corner of the 100 block of Mississippi Avenue to be cut. Every year, it's a big problem. Residents typically can't walk past the street. They have to go out into the street as opposed to walking on the sidewalk. A crew from DPW did come to cut the vegetation about maybe a month ago, but it was only partially cut. And I mentioned it to the team while they were here. They said that they would come back the next day. I haven't seen or heard anything from them. In the meantime, the grass is, as you can imagine, is really growing. We need somebody to come and help us to cut it. How can you help me with that?
Is this a lot, or is it just an open area?
So it's right next to the pavement on the even side of the block. So with part of it is, it's not a lot, to answer your question. No, it's a corner right. It's right near the corner of. What I can do is send you a picture of it. That's probably a better way to bring it to your attention. I'll take a picture and send it to your email. But we really need somebody to come out and cut that for us. Is that something you can help me with?
Yes. But the picture would be helpful because DPW operates in public space.
Right.
So if we once we determine that this is a public space area and we're clear, we're authorized to cut it, then certainly our street and alley folks can definitely do that. If it is next to a structure or a piece of private property, then that brings on other issues. Doesn't mean we won't cut it, but it does mean that there would be some involvement in terms of abatement with the owner.
There used to be a program called Clean and Lean. Is that still in effect?
I've heard of that. To be honest, I'm clean and lean, meaning if we clean the property, if an owner does an abatement, then we can put a lien on it for the cleaning?
Basically, yes. The reason I asked that question is because I believe that this area that I'm talking about is on public space. It's not inside a private yard, but it's next to a home that is right next to the pavement. And so I think it's public space, but we need to kind of confirm that so we can get that cut. Now, DPW has come out in the past and cut that same location. So I'm assuming that it's public space. And as I mentioned,
well, that doesn't mean it's public space. What it may mean is that the owner was given a period of time to abate, because they are responsible to maintain the public space that abuts their property. And if it's not abated, and then we must do it at that point, once the owner refuses to abate the issue, we may come out and cut.
So
it's very likely that we cut it, yes.
Yeah, let me do this. Let me send you a picture.
That would be helpful.
You have mine, then we can follow up. Perhaps I can give you a call during the week and we can figure out what the next step is to resolve that issue.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. And then let me move over to DDOT. Mr. Lott, how are you?
Hey, Lafayette, doing well.
Good, good. Everett, I want to thank you for your help. About 4 months ago, I had talked about some traffic concerns on the 100 block of Mississippi, and you were kind enough to connect me with your Ward 8 community liaison. Very nice gentleman. And he had asked me to fill out a couple of forms, which one I did and the other is still outstanding on my part. So I just need to get that back on track. I realized about a week ago, Everett, it seemed to be what it's like we would call a traffic monitor. Black wires across the 100 block of Mississippi Avenue, closer to 140 Mississippi Avenue. And I'm assuming that our neighbors were assuming as well that it was there to monitor traffic speed on the 100 block of Mississippi Avenue. That's no longer there. Sylvia probably can't hear me, but I don't believe that monitor is still there. So if I can follow up with you or your colleagues to, number one, to see what we can do to address the traffic issue. We have a lot of children, as I mentioned before, on this block, and there's a house at 143 where a number of children are actually outside selling lemonade. Nothing against entrepreneurship, but it's a little risky on that block with all of the traffic going up and down. So just let me know what I need to do to follow up, and we can work on that together.
Yeah, Lafayette, what's the location again?
It's 100 block of Mississippi Avenue. There appeared to be a traffic monitor in front of 140 Mississippi Avenue Southeast.
Okay. I'll get Joshua to follow up, and Howard, do you know about any type of traffic monitoring, anything like that we may have put up over on Mississippi Avenue?
No, that doesn't ring a bell.
Okay. Lafayette, I'll have Joshua, we'll follow with you tomorrow, and maybe even come out there and just take a look.
Okay.
And while we're out, we can take a look at some of the other areas that have been kind of brought up on the call as well.
Great. We're going to take 3 more hand raised call, and then we're going to go back to the chat and see if there are any questions there. So Mary Buckley, I am opening up your mic. You are now able to ask your question or your concern.
Thank you, Wanda.
You're welcome.
This is for Director Lott. We've had a number of accidents of bicyclists on Good Hope Road in the street itself, not the sidewalk. But also, I've been telling DDOT for years that many people who ride bikes out here, they ride in the street, not on the sidewalk. And that's very dangerous because people are speeding out there. Now, I had asked before you came on board about the possibility to get perhaps a bike lane out there, because I think it will slow down traffic. And I know that in the city, many people are getting bike lanes throughout the city. But for some reason, there seems to be a problem with getting a bike lane on this particular street of Good Hope Road. And it's very much frequently used by bicyclists.
Ms. Buckley, I don't know about this specific location on Good Hope Road in terms of our plans going forward for a bike lane, but I'll check with our bike team after this call tomorrow and see what the plans are and if we have a Good Hope Road on our specific plans for a bicycle lane. But before I do that, I'll just ask Joshua if he is aware.
So it was recently brought to my attention, but it was brought to my attention by a project lead on the 11th Street Bridge about bike infrastructure and access along that corridor as well as the park. So I've recently reached out to them to ask what the possibility would be if it was well advertised and supported by the community. So it's something in development, but not concrete because it recently came up. But it's something that I'm working to see if it's possible, infrastructure-wise, and if the community supports it.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not sure what community that would be because the people who use it, I'm not sure they live right here on the street or what, but people who use it are always using it. Even the police officers use it frequently, but they use the sidewalk. And it's just very dangerous for these bicycles to be out in the street. So it'd be much better if they did have some type of protected bike lane to use. It's the regular mode of transportation for many people over here. On Good.
And my contact information is in the chat, Ms. Buckley, and this is going to be ongoing, as I said before, because it's a new development and request. But I'd love to work with you to see what might be possible along this corridor.
Joshua, thank you for responding to that. The next question or concern is from Victoria. Victoria, you're unmuted. If you're speaking, Victoria, okay. There you go.
Okay. Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Commissioner Victoria Akinzi, Single Member District HCO2. My question is to DDOT. So a couple of residents within my community have put in traffic safety investigations because of some of the public safety issues that we're having. My first question is, when a request is put through 311, and then they send a recommendation to me, recommendation of support to me, and I submit it to DDOT. The thing is, I noticed that in 311, they will close the ticket with a resolution, and then the resident who submitted the request will receive a letter saying that their request was received. So I guess my question is, what is the protocol after that? Because you really don't know what the resolution is. The final resolution is once.
Oh, what happened to her? Let me see if I can find her. My apologies if I hit something. Okay.
Wanda, I can answer that question.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm going to find her.
So yeah, what she's describing is actually the old process for a traffic safety assessment request. And she's absolutely correct. When the request comes in through 311, once that request has been processed and forwarded over to the traffic safety team, for the purposes of 311, the request is completed. And so it would close out that request as being completed. That doesn't mean that the TSA assessment has been completed. It just means that the request, as it came through the 311 system, acknowledges it as being completed. One of the things that we want to change, quite honestly, with the TSA process is some other jurisdictions we've looked at, they've taken out the TSA's away from the 311 service request. So, you know, if you think about hierarchy of service, service request is really for, you know, things that need immediate, you know, short-term attention, right? You need a traffic sign is down, it needs to be replaced. A street light is out.
Right.
So those are the kinds of things that really should be in the 311 system. A traffic safety assessment, you know, requires the collection of data and analytical review. And in many cases, it requires sometimes some heavy engineering and design work even before you get to implementation. So one of the things we're looking to do is create another or a different portal similar to like what Arlington County uses, whereby people can go online and submit information in a more detailed way about their traffic concerns in a portal that directly links to the traffic safety assessment website. In that way, we don't have this sort of glitch in the system where it closes it out in 311, but the work is actually just starting when it's closed out in the 311 system. And one of the last things we want to do is have, as much as we all love Joshua, we don't think it's fair for Joshua, if he's not the one who's doing the traffic assessment and the engineering work and so forth, he really shouldn't be the one presenting to the community. So one of the things we want to do is have more direct interaction between the traffic engineers and the communities that make the request for the safety assessments. That way, you can basically tell your story right to the person who's doing the assessment. They can hear it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and they can also provide some more detailed feedback in real time as part of that engagement process.
Mr. Wade, we definitely accept that. And so we're going to be calling upon you to do that. So we welcome the opportunity for the assessment team to talk to our community, because we do pull on Joshua for a number of things. So thank you for offering that. Tori, I'm going to turn it back over to you. You have any questions in the chat that you'd like to ask? And we're going to wrap up at 8 o'clock sharp. So let's try to get as many questions as we can. So Tori, do you have any questions in the chat?
I do, Wanda, and excuse me if you hear this Labrador Retriever trying to break down my door, everyone. But yes, we have several questions. One that I do want to go back to is again from our Constituent Services Director, Ms. Glenn. She's asking, can an audit be performed on how many requests Ward 8 puts in, and this is for both Ms. Duffy and Director Lott, can an audit be performed on how many requests Ward 8 puts in and how many are closed out successfully and closed out without the actual work being done in conjunction with each ward in the city?
So I'll double check with my team, but for something extensive as that, it may require for a request, but I know as far as just requests for Ward 8 can be found on opendata.dc.gov.
Okay.
I've taken that question from the Q&A chat, and I'm going to ask my team to look into the possibilities of what would be next steps.
Okay. Yeah, and I see that you all are responding because there are still several questions in the chat. Also, a question.
I'm sorry, before you go on, I just wanted to make sure if you could put that information in the chat, that opendata.dc.gov, so that our constituents will have that information, please. Tori, my apologies. Go ahead, please.
Excuse me, Ms. Lockridge. I have to jump off for another call that I had at 7:30. So I think the team's still going to be on and stay on, but I have to get off for another call.
Thank you so much, Director. Councilmember White, you have any closing remarks for Director Lott before he leaves?
Yeah, I just want to, we should have sent you some of the outstanding things we had with our office. I haven't received a response back for that yet. I'm not sure if Wanda did or not, but we just want to make sure that we are getting some responses to some of the concerns we're getting from the residents that are outdated.
Yeah, I'll make sure. I thought we did provide a response, Councilmember, but I'll check with the team, and if we didn't, I'll make sure we get that over to you this week.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you, sir.
Thanks
a lot, Wanda, and to all the Ward 8 community. Thank you all very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Another question: the W bus that runs Orange to 2nd to Newcomb has created a hazardous condition that requires the residents to perform illegal maneuvers because it is too narrow to allow the bus and vehicles to pass. The residents have tried for more than a decade to have the route moved one block. Daily, residents are required to back down the street and back around the overlooked circle to allow the bus to pass. We are only asking that the route be moved one block so that vehicles can travel safely or safely travel.
That sounds like a Mata question.
Hello?
Yeah, it's the W bus, so it likely is. Did you hear that, Mr. Clark?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what was that 100 block again? Can you type it into the chat for me, please?
Sure. This is actually in the Q&A side of the chat. So at the bottom, if you'll see, there's a Q&A section and then there's a chat section.
Yeah.
Do you see that? It's from Wanda Johnson.
Wanda Johnson. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I wanted to go back, not sure if you saw this, but there's an alley that runs behind the 700 block of Brandywine Street, which has a lot of overgrown vegetation. Ms. Dyson says she's placed requests to have it cleared. She's asked her former ANC commissioner, and they were told that it's private property and that the city will not clear it. This doesn't seem correct, given that the city has cleared it before. Can someone advise? And again, that's the 700 block of Brandywine. It's the alley behind the 700 block of Brandywine.
I'm happy to answer that. That's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so our street and alley cleaning, this is very similar to the question we had earlier. It is quite possible that DPW came out and cleaned the area. If it is private property, then we clean only after the property owner has been given an opportunity to abate and has failed to abate. At that point, then DPW will come out and clean.
Someone also asked, is it possible to start having trash collection trucks snap pictures of violating homes that are chronically leaving large amounts of trash outside of their green or blue cans, because it is very problematic?
Probably not for the trash crews, but what is very possible and should be happening is that should be happening with the sweep inspectors. So what should be happening is the trash supervisor should receive a note about those chronic violators, and that note, they should pass that on to sweep so that those owners for that property are receiving education and enforcement. So sweep should be doing that regularly, not necessarily the collection crews.
Okay, and also, how can more emphasis be placed on emptying the DPW trash cans that align many of our streets who overflow into the streets and dirty up a neighborhood? Because of COVID, people are home and trash builds up, but there has not been an increase in service to our ward on these issues, and we've placed numerous tickets in the 311 system about an overflow of trash in our communities.
Well, we are really spending a lot of time looking at the litter can, the public litter can issue, because this is happening across the city. In fact, the deputy director did an entire tour of every ward in the city and literally went and dug through overflowing cans to try and determine where this overflow is coming from. And you're correct. There's an uptick because people are home, and a lot of people are taking household trash and putting them in the overflowing cans. So public litter can collection is a nighttime collection. So, you know, somewhere in the deep of the night, those cans are empty, but possibly by 10, 11, 12, 2 in the afternoon, the cans can be overflowing because people who are then up and active in their day may be in commercial residences or not, are using the public litter to for what they should be using for trash collection. And we are seriously looking at, and I'm not sure, certainly when Interim Director Davis comes back to speak with you all, that hopefully she will be able to announce some type of program. But we realize that we're not collecting during the day, but a lot of this overflowing and violating is happening during the day.
Also, there are several seniors that have contacted our constituent services specialist, Mr. James Woods, about super cans. They're constantly requesting super cans, and those requests are being closed out, but yet the seniors never receive the super cans. So that's becoming a constant issue, and those calls are coming in consistently to the office of Councilmember White.
Okay, so the issue with super cans is that the vendor that we use to order our super cans from has been backed up and delayed and has been delayed for several municipalities across the country. We are waiting. I believe, and I'll have to check this, we may have just received our order of super cans, but it was behind. It was very, very delayed.
Thank you. There's another question. Who is responsible for the growth on and around the ramp that is used to cross 295?
It's possible that that's DPW. I'd have to look into that. But it's very possible that that's DPW. Because you said it's the ramp.
Yeah, it says that it's the ramp. There's growth on and around the ramp that is used to cross 295. Miss Barbara Clark of 8802, if you're still on, if you can provide some more details in the chat for Miss Duffy. And then I see several people asking for Miss Duffy's contact information, and she has actually put it in the chat several times. So if you look down towards the bottom of the chat, her information is there. Also, there's a boat parked in the circle at the end of Foxhall Place Southeast. No one lives in that circle, and the boat impedes traffic flow. It's asked, why does DPW allow it to remain there without moving it? Someone says that they've made several 311 requests regarding that boat as well, and the latest one was resolved, quote, saying it's not a violation, but the residents find that very hard to believe.
I'm sorry.
If there's a boat, yeah, it's a boat just sitting at the end of Foxhall Place, and several residents are complaining about how it impedes traffic flow, but yet DPW is telling them that it's not a violation to be sitting in the circle of an actual street, dead end, cul-de-sac, the like.
It would be helpful if I could have a picture of that. I think I would need to see that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Mr. Ross and Miss Brittany Cummings, if you could email pictures of the boat that you're concerned about at Foxhall Place Southeast to Miss Duffy, that would be appreciated. Also, this is more of a DDOT question. If there's a resident that's been in an accident, a pretty bad accident, most of the streets are just open street parking. Is there a way for that resident to get a temporary parking permit to park directly in front of their house?
So are you talking about for disability?
Well, it would be short term or temporary. It's just a very bad accident. They can hardly walk up and down. So they're asking if there's a way to get a temporary residential permit to park directly in front of their home until they recover from the accident.
And this question is in the Q&A, is it?
It isn't. This is actually a question that came to us from a neighbor.
Tori, can you email me that neighbor's information and address, and I can follow up with them, please?
Sure. And again, if you all are checking the chat, again, there's several concerns regarding outstanding safety traffic assessments that are open. And then one says the first concern is the request regarding the bus stop between 400 and 200 block of Newcomb Street causes hazard situations on this particular street. The second concern is outstanding speed bump request for the 200 block of Oakwood Street. They're saying the turnaround time is 130 days, which is quite lengthy, and residents are not giving updates regarding getting updates is what I believe they meant to say regarding submitted requests. And this is also in the chat, Joshua.
And so for that 200 block of Oakwood, are they saying that it was closed?
They're saying they're not getting updates regarding the submitted request. And
I can get that for them.
Okay, and then also earlier in the chat, and I don't want to miss this question, some were saying because there's seniors that may not be tech savvy, and a lot of these requests are through these, not just from calling 311, but there's websites and links that you have to go to. What do you, DPW and DDOT, propose for those who are not able to actually go onto the internet or onto these various links because they just don't know how or don't have the assistance. What would the suggestion be?
Is this in reference to Wendy Glenn's question about technology that can monitor the seniors in certain corridors?
I believe so.
Allow more time for them to cross.
I think it piggybacks off of that. Because actually the question was from a Miss Joyce Jackson. Hers was, how will elder citizens who can't afford internet in Ward 8 be able to get the visitor or residential parking permits if this is a need for the individual? So that also goes with that question.
Yeah, I can jump in on the visitor and residential parking pass. I put into the chat the response. There's two individuals on my team, Mr. Earl Boyd and Mr. Jerry Lyle, that the people can contact directly to get assistance if they are not able to get access to the internet to fill out their applications. You can always call in, and we've done this in the past several times, and help walk people through that application process on a one-on-one basis.
Thank you. And Wanda, I know we're at 10 minutes to 8. Several of the questions, again, if everyone can look at the contacts for Joshua Clark and DPW and DDOT, so that we can have a lot of the questions that may not have been answered tonight. If we could definitely have you email those concerns. I do see one more question here that says, can DDOT have a plate placed over the holes in the street on Condon Terrace at 4th Street Southeast?
What was that address again?
It's holes in the street on Condon Terrace at 4th Street Southeast. It doesn't give an exact address, but there's obviously large holes, and they're asking if plates can be placed over the holes.
Condon Terrace and 4th Street?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have my public safety inspection team go out there and assess that. And they're usually the ones who install the plates, and they generally do those fairly rapidly. That's a classic example of a 311 service request that usually we can address, if not in 48 hours, usually in a very quick turnaround time period, because obviously you don't want holes in your streets, or they cause quite a safety hazard. So in the future, it's always best to put that type of request into 311. And if you don't see any action, obviously you can call the agency and we can follow up with the exact information about that specific service request. But I'll address this with my team first thing in the morning.
And I want to make sure that we saw Wendy Glenn asked about the mayor's Vision Zero was to eliminate all traffic fatalities and serious injuries. It seems to be in direct conflict with the traffic study timeline and its effectiveness to work to end these injuries and fatalities. So I wanted to make sure that that was not missed. And also one last thing, someone's asking, what verbiage should they use when they are requesting street cleaning or manual street cleaning? Is there something particular that they should say when making these requests?
Yes, it would be helpful if they said manual street cleaning, and if they if it's the main street and the issue is a sidewalk or the area near a sidewalk, it'd be great to say that as well.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, just to,
if we could just do one more, Tori, so we can begin to make sure that we're closing out and make sure that the council member have an opportunity.
Yes, this is just to add to Condon Terrace at 4th Street, the holes in the street. Mr. Ross says that these holes are in front of the new senior building on Condon Terrace and 4th. And that ends for me, Wanda.
Tori, thank you so much for the questions. I have one last one, and I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember White. This is regarding the road work on Martin Luther King Avenue going towards South Capitol Street. It says the work started, but I just want to know when it would be finished and why was the road really split apart with aisles, making one side of the street more trickier to travel because of the parked cars, some double parked in front of businesses. It seems like the whole rework was really set to make it more troublesome than anything else, as well as extended sidewalk that were built outside around the turn onto Alabama Avenue. We used to just have the exit to veer right with the traffic light. Now there's a huge sidewalk area. This doesn't seem to be convenient for the residents. If someone can talk about the road work on Martin Luther King Avenue towards South Capitol, especially there at the Alabama Avenue where the fork was in the road. If you can explain why that traffic pattern changed and when the work will be completed.
You talking about when the new building, the new apartment building was built?
No, this is actually right by the old Congress High School in front of like MLK Deli, the Informer, where the church is. Just as you come up 4th Street and you make the right turn where you were able to just go veer to the right to Alabama Avenue. Now you have to go up and make a sharp left.
Can I speak to that real quick, Wanda?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it is totally confusing. You can be in the left lane, then you have to shift back over to the right lane, then shift back over to the left lane. Like, the design is, I'm not sure who thought of that design. Also, we have some of the leaders of UPO, because you used to can go down MLK and turn right into the parking lot of UPO. Now it's a median, cement median going through the street where you can't make that left turn into their parking lot anymore to get services. Now you got to go down the street, which is busy and crowded, and the lane has been removed, and try to bust a U-turn by that liquor store / discount mart right there. Like, I'm not sure who came up with that plan, but it's not conducive for drivers or walkers in that busy intersection right there.
Councilmember, if I'm not mistaken, this is where you did the walk where we shared those same concerns even before they started building it. And they didn't listen to the residents nor to the council member to all the concerns of those individuals who live here and know about it. So it was just a disregard to the residents.
Yes. Yep.
So if somebody on DDOT can talk about that, please. I know the director is no longer here, but if someone can speak to it.
So the location sounds like you're talking about is phase 1 of the MLK revitalization project?
Yes.
Yeah, let me double check, but just because that construction is still ongoing, I'm not sure if that's going to be permanent. So I'll follow up with the project manager on that to see what the final plans will be and to express this concern.
So why would the government invest that type of money to do construction, slow down traffic, inconvenience people, only for it to be temporary? I'm not sure the logic behind that.
Right, like I said, I would have to look into that. That comes from design and construction.
Can you speak to the aisles? I mean, the medium there, is it going to be concrete? Is it going to be plants? What's there that's taking up so much of that?
I know one of y'all's questions were the medians and who would maintain those medians and what will be in them.
Correct.
There'll be grass in those areas, and it'll be the maintenance will be switched to DPW.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember, that was the last question we had. I'm turning it over to you, sir. I thank everybody, all the ANC commissioner, all the questions, all the concerns. It makes a difference when you speak up that we know what your needs are so we can advocate as well for you. So again, thanks everybody for joining us. Councilmember White.
Thank you. Mr. Clark, I wanted to get your follow-up to my question about what are some of the things that the agency removes tickets for that has not been addressed.
Right, and I have two for you. One of them is sometimes when we have requests that are for the same area, that we combine them. And usually, this is why it's so important when you put in that 311 request to put in a good email address, because the updates are given in the comments, and they usually will say this request is now under this service request, and they're just combined and it's closed. But I will make mention of saying why it was closed and that being more specific in that wording. And then another one is that most times when they're closed, there's supposed to be a final letter that goes out that shows the study that we did. and talks about the information that we collected from the traffic study. And if that's not received, somebody should immediately contact me, because it's not usual that we close out requests that I work with without comments as to why or what's next.
So I guess I was thinking there was some type of request that have been submitted but didn't stand the mustard or whatever and didn't need to be addressed. I thought you was going to come back with that. I'm confused on. You're saying that it's communication on why it was closed out. Are there reasons why it was closed out and the work not being done?
Well, it has the traffic safety assessment. There has to be a warrant for the work being requested, and warrants mean there has to be a study conducted. And so, like I said, there should be comments that say what that study found. And if not, I should be immediately contacted. But usually, it's closed out with why we closed and what was found.
So one of our one of our many areas of concern is around the 7th Avenue area from Eastover down to the Nella Road. There's been a substantial amount of accidents and incidents up and down there. I know we spoke. I know we spoke to some of the elders there who has to cross that street right there and that beacon. I don't know if you remember, but I did a Facebook Live video where I stood there for 45 minutes and flashed the lights, and only one car stopped, and that was somebody who knew me that stopped to say hello to me, and everybody kept coming there. And it's a senior citizens home right there on I think that's 9th and Southern Avenue. Then you can go further up, and also 800 block of Southern Avenue, where that hill is. You can't see over that hill by the high rise. We've had a number of incidents there over the past 5 years, and it's still right now to this day, nothing has been done. This is our 3rd director we're on, and we still haven't seen any thing that helps the residents in this area.
I understand, and I've been hearing this issue as well, and I apologize. So, from what I understand, phase 2 is underway to begin before the end of 2021, and that's from Barnaby Road to United Medical Center. But I would hope to have this started before the end of 2021, which is where we'll upgrade traffic signals, improve safety pedestrian for vehicles along the corridor, and install additional traffic calming features.
Yeah, and I don't want to belabor it, but part of the issue is that the Hawk beacons don't work. No one's paying attention. Actually, it puts you at greater danger because you're trusting that people are going to stop when you walk through, and they don't stop. In fact, they speed up. If someone attempts to slow down and make a left or right in the intersection, the other person speeds and go around because it's totally ignored, meaning you're stuck in the middle and chance getting hit by the second car coming around. I have a video of 45 minutes it went on, so I can imagine it's happening on a daily basis.
Right, and I can understand because I often walk and I run into it, and working for DDOT, I get even more annoyed because I say, oh my goodness, they do just what they said. They swerve around, they don't stop. And sometimes folks think getting themselves in that walkway, they will, and it's putting them in danger. So I understand that concern. And I just want to voice how much I would like to do more for this area, and I'll push for you all to get.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I just want to continue to try to push for greater measures, but a lot of times it's all in the design, and sometimes when these things are happening, I'm not sure. And what I have to ask too is when are the traffic studies taken? Because I know there's certain times of days and months and seasons where speeding is greater.
And you know how I feel. I'm one who believes we don't need another study. Ward 8 and had more vehicular deaths than anywhere in the city. We've been studying when people are still getting hit. I seen an accident on the 300 block of Atlanta Street the other day. There's been numerous accidents and tragedies. So I'm past the study. We're looking for some solutions. We even giving suggestions to what need to be done. And sometimes there has been something done, but not really what the residents have requested. So it's like when we talk about social equities in the ward or throughout the district, we're not saying it, to be honest. And it's just unsatisfactory that we keep have to have these same conversations over and over again. I'm in good hopes because the new director gave us some assurance that there will be some action. But man, when and I know that we can't control human behavior either. But if residents keep saying they need a light, and the senior citizens, man, keep saying they need a light, they need a light, they need a light, man. And there's still no light. Like, we were like, this is a whole government agency with hundreds of $1 million in the budget. Like, what are we paying tax dollars for? We can't get the services that people are requesting to pay taxes in the city.
I understand. And like I said, I'm going to work with Howard Ways, the director, and David Jones to see what pushes we can do and alternative measures, because those measures that you said we're implementing aren't working. So I have to go back to the drawing board with my team to see what we can do in the short term and what we can do in the long term for these particular areas.
Almost as if DDOT does the opposite, right? And I'm not sure. I sent an email last year about the parking signs that went up on Mississippi Avenue, and it's the block. This weekend there was a program for Ab Jordan, the commissioner, for his birthday. You can't park in the park, and you can't park on the street because there's no parking signs. Like, where are people supposed to park to go to the park?
Yeah, and that's a tough one. So I recently talked to Tasha Powell, commissioner in that SMD, and I think it was even a follow-up today with David Jones, and we got the feedback. If you give me one moment, I'll pull it up. David, do you have it readily available, the response we have for that particular area? I just sent it over. Hold on one second. So what was told to me is that we looked at the request a few months back. Part of the road had no parking signs as of late March, and part of the road did. The road is actually, from what our specialists are telling us, too narrow to allow for 2 lanes of parking and two-way traffic. And there's bus traffic in both conditions. They asked our technician to extend no parking signs for that length of the park.
Well, we're asking them to take it down. It's been parking there since that building was built in the 100 block of Mississippi Avenue. That parking has been there since I was born. So I'm not sure what the issue is. It's been parking right there for a very long time. That used to be 10th place where you have all these apartments building down there. I'm not sure what the issue is with the road. If we need to push the sidewalk back, it's how are you going to have a community event or family function in the park if you can't park in the park or on the street? And I'm not sure where they're saying there's no sign. If it is, he's close to the Lockridge field, and that's probably about 5 to 6 cars that can fit down there.
I'm writing this down now.
Councilmember, what block was on Mississippi Avenue?
1200 block.
Both directions?
1200 block. Well, I'm not sure. I know it's on the side where the park is.
Okay. It's on certain points of both sides where no parking is allowed.
Got it.
There's only a block, so I'm not sure. All
right, Josh, I'll work with you on this one.
Sounds good.
All right. I want to thank everyone for joining the call. We look forward to having a follow-up to this conversation in the near future throughout the summer. I think this is healthy to have dialogue from the residents so we can get their concerns heard, because the reality is we work for you guys. We must never forget that. We are pushing during the budget for social and racial equity studies to ensure that we are utilizing our resources in an equitable way in a ward that needed more than most. And so we need your help to be present at the hearings, to be active and lift your voice, and we want to support you on that. Until we join again, be blessed, be safe, and don't stand there. Do something.